really of introducing you to the future and really forming a more inspirational and look forward as far as where medicine could go with telemedicine and really teletechnology, if you will. My background actually is in engineering as well. That's my undergraduate degree, and then went into medicine for an interest in that. So really, this is a combination of really two worlds of interest. So I really do appreciate this opportunity to speak on this topic. I have one disclaimer or disclosure. I am co-founder and president of a medical health technologies company on which we use such technologies. So I have an interest in this that's deeply rooted. So I do appreciate this opportunity. And that is the key word today, is opportunity. That that the future really is up to all of you as we as physicians and providers look to see how can we better improve the health of our patients. As a neurologist, we have traditionally been a little slow to the game for anything new. We like to overanalyze and to make sure everything is just right. And many times this hesitancy can sometimes be to our detriment, as you can see in some of the quotes listed here. So I want you to really start to think about, to dream for a minute, what can things do as we move forward into the future? So today's plan is just a brief history, the transition, current applications, and then future directions. Telemedicine at its core really is, how do we communicate with our patients? And we've been doing this for a very long time. Started off with fires and smoke signals in the past, advanced to light reflecting beacons on military ships, drums and horns, and over time it evolved into where we are today. But at the essence is, how do we connect and communicate to our patients? And it's important, and it looks back to where we were way back in 1924, when telemedicine was in a way predicted in the radio magazine, and how the use, as you can see here, of this young man speaking to a doctor, giving his ailments. This picture actually reminds me of a Back to the Future scene when it wasn't quite telemedicine, but it was something different. But nonetheless, the look to the future has always been present. And we stand today with a similar vantage point to where we can go in the future as we dream forward. The benefits of telemedicine, which is important to me as far as, if we're going to do something, why are we doing it? And really, telemedicine serves to improve access to care. I might argue that though it may not be a tremendous leap forward technically, in the history of medicine, telemedicine actually allows us to access more patients, not just locally, but internationally and worldwide. And in my opinion, really is one of the biggest advancements, because now we can start to treat people in areas that we almost had no access to. And of course, there's going to be technical limitations as far as connectivity, but as those get improved and resolved, we are now allowed to treat individuals who we never had access before. People in parts of the world who never had access to specialists can now get that access. So it's exciting that it really improves access to care. It's cost efficient. It does lower healthcare costs in many ways as we move forward. And I would say it can improve quality in the sense that looking at mental health accessibility, ICU care, many ways that we can actually improve quality, once again, due to access to care. And then consumer demand. Consumers are starting to really want this. We have a generation of individuals who are used to speaking to grandma on their video phone. They're used to ordering everything from their phone. Why not access healthcare? And so really, if we don't embrace such a technology, we will be behind the 8 ball as other companies start to do so. And so to me, this is the why of why telemedicine and telehealth is important. And whenever we go to do things, it's important to keep that in mind. So the adaptation of telemedicine was initially slow, as we all knew. It was regulations, it was lack of insurance coverage. It was doctors did not think that we could actually do a viable exam via virtual means. Patients weren't used to, they're used to seeing a real doctor. And so how can my doctor really connect with me virtually? Or even concerns. There were legal concerns. Am I liable if I miss something? There were so many concerns that really slowed the adaptation of telemedicine until this happened. And once the coronavirus happened, everything changed, as we all know and experienced. So those limitations were really in many ways removed. Reimbursement was changed. Quality care, that we started to see that, you know what, you actually can do a quality telemedicine visit with the patient, and not necessarily sacrifice exam or sacrifice the connection with the patient. Legal issues, as we just heard, were relaxed and allowed us to be able to integrate telemedicine in our practice in a legal fashion. And even the social issues, broadband access was improved over time, and so many of the burdens that limited us in the past have now been reduced, and now are becoming more friendly to telemedicine as we look to the future of what we can do. Um, just looking at it from a market perspective, dollars and cents. In 2019, it was a $45 billion business. In 2026, it's going to jump up to about $175 billion business. So telemedicine it's a big area to go into, both from a market standpoint, from a patient demand standpoint, and just from a patient access to care standpoint. As we may already know, there are various ways that we can look at telemedicine. It's not just your video visit. CMS has described it as a live synchronous video conferencing. There's also the store and forward or asynchronous use, where a patient can communicate information to a doctor, and the doctor can, in his own time, then communicate back. We're starting to get into remote patient monitoring, where we can get real-time information on vital signs and other statistics that the patients have that are important to their lifestyle. And even now, mobile health, where we're starting to see a more consumer-driven or consumer-facing interaction with providers, and patients. So there are different ways that we can start to redefine telemedicine outside of just this video visit. The location also will be changing, or is changing, in regards to where telehealth is provided. You have the primary care setting, where this is the typical model that many of us as in academics are in which it's the outpatient directed patient care. But there are also independent companies who are doing direct-to-consumer care. Other companies are doing things where they advertise on just social media, on TV, and they get patients that way. So it's a different level of interaction that's developing. You have the hospital setting, where you have tele-ICUs that are being developed, where you have, all-night coverage, instantaneous coverage, which really reduces the physician burden load, if you will. That you have people who are doing shifts remotely, who can be instantaneously in a patient's room, seeing what's going on with that patient for critical care services. You're starting to see telehealth being utilized in the surgical suites and any other medical as well. Telestroke, for example, is a medical example, where now the doctor can be at home, as you know, and we can see a stroke patient almost instantaneously. So you're starting to see this become common stay, or even just expected. And chronic care. This is where the remote patient monitoring comes into play, for the chronic monitoring of patients for the diseases, which can, in theory, really improve their care of it, or their monitoring of it, because they have more interaction with their providers. And even transitions of care. That time period where people are in between hospital and their clinic, you now have a way to interact with them because you can do it remotely. And we're going to see many more areas, as you'll see in the next few slides, of where we're starting to see teleservices engage. So I'm going to kind of really focus the last few slides really on about 5 areas where we're seeing trends in 2021 and beyond, for where you will see telehealth. EHR, electronic health records, becoming embedded with telehealth services, and it not be separate. Wearables, as was mentioned briefly by Dr. Mari, in the past, we're going to see a huge increase in wearables and even redefine what wearables are. Big data. We're entering the age where artificial intelligence is really entering almost every area of life, but especially in medicine. Augmented reality is becoming, it's already here, but we're going to see a much larger increase in the future as different providers and different specialties start to use this as part of their practice. And then with all of this becomes an increasing need for data security. And so we're going to see changes in that as well. So let's jump right in. So this is an example of where you're going to start to see the embedded telehealth medical record. So instead of having your telehealth on one screen and your record on another screen, it's embedded. You can see the patient live, you can see their vitals potentially, you can see other recorded data potentially all on one nice, neat screen. This is an example. This is just a study that was done and concluded in 2020 that was researching, the promise of of embedded medical records and what can it do. And it really basically showed that we need more studies because it wasn't out there yet, but people were starting to do it, and now they were doing it. It seemed promising, and we need more research in that area. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot more data points coming out as far as the benefits of integrating the electronic medical record with the telehealth application, and how all those things can really improve our assessment of patients and our care of patients. Wearables. Now, this is, I think, the first thing we all think of when we say wearables is we think of our watch or some kind of device that we're on our wrist. And what they're starting to monitor is just amazing. We all know that you can monitor your sleep with your watch. You can monitor how many steps you receive, your heart rate. That's just the beginning. When you look at specific areas, like for neurology, we're starting to see wristbands and smartwatches start to develop. Same thing for mental health. We're starting to see pulmonary information being put in with the pulse oximetry. We get movements with the wristbands. We're getting shoe inserts that are potentially being developed. Metabolic scans that can look at actual metabolic data from our bodies. Cardiovascular parts with chest straps and vests. There are so many areas that are in VC areas right now that it's just crazy. Biochemical, physiologic movement, all these are starting to be incorporated. So let us no longer think of wearables as just a watch. We can start to see clothing developed. We're starting to see it be integrated in ingestibles. And I'll show you in a second, even attached devices are being utilized and are actually created already. Don't let your eyeglasses go to waste. You can also start to see in our eyewear. So it's really coming amazing where you're going to start to see the application of wearables in the future. The location, hospital, in-home, rural, low resources. There's even talk of looking at redefining what a hospital is, and as we can monitor at home more, being able to do more home monitoring, keep people well at home with proper monitoring. So the possibilities are truly endless, and by the day, they're becoming more and more impressive as we're going to start to see the utilization of telemedicine, telehealth in medicine. Just a kind of a slide that just highlights everything from glasses to mouth guards to clothing to wrist strips to belts to watches, rings, shoes, headsets, armbands. If you can think about it, it's being done. So I encourage you to think about it, because the more we do, that's the better we're going to be able to take care of our patients in many ways. You're starting to see e-textiles, which I think is very interesting, when they can analyze sweat content and cardiovascular signals and physiological activity that goes on. Industries here, and this is an example of these textiles that are being developed that can be a patch on your skin, which can then read certain chemicals and then give that live feedback. And maybe beyond just feedback, maybe intervention we're starting to see. And don't just think of it in that healthcare is just the patient-doctor relationship. It's really going to be expanding to preventing injury, as you can see here on the top right, as we can start to help have these external devices that allows individuals to be able to improve their strength, but at the same time give data back. We started to see it in the military, as we can get biostatistics from military personnel to know how they're doing, what's going on, and be able to make real-time war decisions as far as the health of our soldiers. Athletic performance, we're starting to see these come out in different sporting clothing where people can start to enhance performance in what they're doing by getting real-time data in what they're doing. And so all these things, all these different devices and applications can tie into how we care for patients in different areas of our specialties. And top left is even starting to intervene as we not just record data, but also develop applications to be able to help intervene when necessary. So it is truly exciting what we will be able to do in the future, but it's not that far away. Big data. And big data really is the beginning of, not the beginning of it, is the use of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is really aiming to mimic the cognitive process of the human mind. And to do so, it harnesses the power of healthcare data along with the power of analytical techniques to solve complex medical problems. And so it's just going to be amazing what we can see done through AI and big data. This is just a list of some of the top 10, some leading diseases that we're starting to see AI start to think about. Neoplasms, the nervous system, cardiovascular, lots of systems are being used, are using AI to start to look at how we treat patients, both from a general perspective and from a real-time perspective. It's really amazing. The AI types is varied. Everything from the older support vector machines that were relatively simple to neural networks, to now deep learning machines, which take neural networks and expands them. As you can see in the bottom line, it's not just one network, it's multiple neural networks that are thinking and looking at different outcomes. So the rate at which we're learning to utilize medical data it's astounding. But let's not even forget quantum computing. And that's is just a whole nother level of where we're going to be able to go, both from a security perspective and from being able to analyze multiple disease states multiple times and making connections that we can't even imagine. So the future for big data and AI is astounding, and stay tuned. Augmented reality. This is looking into the future and how we literally see medicine, and changing the eyes that we have and expanding what we can't see into what we can see. And it's not just in treatment. Medical education will be able to start to utilize augmented reality in ways to teach our future physicians and providers how to see the body and how to do procedures. Neurological rehabilitation for stroke and Parkinson's and even dementia will be utilizing or can utilize neurological virtual reality in how we rehab patients. We have great, at our institution, we're utilizing VR in the rehab of stroke patients with a variety of, I call it the Thorafist. It's where you can use their hands and they can start doing things virtually to help improve their dexterity. So it's amazing in that sense. Surgical assistance, and we started to see that robots and augmented reality can help surgeons when they're doing procedures. Mental health, there's a great program in the VA that helps patients who have PTSD, and they get all the data from what got them to their traumatic states, and they can recreate that scene, and that they can expose the patient in small doses of what happened to help them get over their PTSD. It's an amazing program. It's a completely immersive virtual experience. Dentists and oral facial surgeons are using it. So, and even cardiologists. So there are so many ways that we're going to start to see augmented reality being utilized. That is just truly amazing, and I can't wait to see what the future holds in this category. Now, cybersecurity probably is one of the most important parts of what we're doing, because we have to make sure that our patients' data is safe. And so even with the onset of the new generation of security, we're going to see a lot more ways that we can encrypt data and make it safer for our patients from that perspective. So it's just really amazing. So I really want to leave you guys with that. There are many ways that you're going to see trends in telemedicine, EHR, embedded telehealth, wearables, big data, augmented reality, and data. All these things are being utilized for what I call is our why. Once again, it's to improve access to care, cost efficiencies, improve quality, and because our patients are going to start demanding this. So I truly thank you for your time. Really, the future is what you think about, so be creative. The future is in your hands, and please reach out to me if you have any questions. And I thank you for this opportunity.